You're probably thinking, what's this, a non-X-Men related video? Surprising, yes, but I did say I would make other videos about stuff that I like, and another thing that I like is the MCU TV show Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. To the great dismay of everyone, except my dad, probably, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. finally came to an end last week as it finished its 7th season. I watched the final episode, and I am kinda depressed. Not because the finale was bad, it was good actually, but I'm just kinda bummed that I won't get to spend time with these characters anymore. So, in lieu of being sad, I decided to do something a little more lighthearted to celebrate the run of the show. Over the course of 7 seasons and 136 episodes, our daring agents have encountered a lot of villains and been through a lot of terrible things which were caused by those villains. But I've learned the truth about this show, and every single bad thing that has happened in the entirety of its run is the fault of one person. Alveus, the ultimate head of Hydra, the horrifying inhuman monster known as Hive. And now some of you may be thinking, but Hive was only a villain in season 3, how could he possibly be responsible for everything? You're also probably thinking that I spend an inordinate amount of time being presumptuous about your inner thoughts, but please bear with me. I have done the math, and I can prove that the source of all the problems plaguing the lives of these agents is Hive himself. Fitz's brain damage? All Hive's fault. Yo-Yo losing her arms? All Hive's fault. Phil dying a second time? All Hive's fault. Every single horrible thing that has ever happened to Daisy? All Hive's fault. And now, let me show you. To explore Mr. Tentacleface's slimy exploits, let's start off with Season 1. The main villains of that season are John Garrett, Grant Ward, Raina, and the organizations of Centipede and Hydra. Obviously, it goes without saying that everything Hydra does is the fault of Hive because Hydra was founded because of him. Centipede was also created for the purpose of keeping John Garrett alive, and he was Hydra, so once again, Hive. And now one could argue, but that doesn't cover all of Season 1, there are other conflicts and villains unrelated to the main plot. That may be true, but they are still caused by Hive. In episode 2, 084, the titular object for which the team is imprisoned and nearly killed is none other than a Hydra weapon, so once again, Hive. And in episode 3, the asset, the conflict revolves around Ian Quinn, Franklin Hall, and Gravitonium, so you might be thinking, surely this can't be tied to Hive in any way. And you would be right, but that doesn't mean there aren't others. For instance, Aquila Amador and her predicament, caused by Centipede, caused by Garrett, caused by Hydra. Skye's boyfriend betraying her, he insists he did just so they could have a better life, but the only reason that Skye was in that life in the first place was because Hydra destroyed her family, so ha! Even the conflict of episode 6, is caused by Hive. In that episode, Simmons is infected by an alien virus and the team races to find a cure. Still Hive's fault because that virus came from a Chitauri helmet, and the Chitauri only came to Earth because S.H.I.E.L.D. was messing with the Tesseract, which they only possessed because it was found by the Red Skull, who is the most prominent member of, you guessed it, Hydra. Boom. Now for the hub, it's a bit harder to tie it back to Hive, but the episode is about Fitz and Ward dealing with South Ossetians, who are close to Russia, and Hive is probably responsible for communism in some way, so it's all its fault. In episode 8, The Well, the villains are a paganist hate group, but they're obsessed with Norse mythology and were probably spurred on by Loki's invasion, and we already established that that was Hive's fault as well, so there you go. In Repairs, I admit it's harder to tie it back to Hive, but the catalyst for the whole situation was a particle accelerator, which has to do with, like, nuclear energy and stuff, the testing for which started back in World War II, which was started by the Nazis, and Hydra was their science division, so ha! Scientific advancement is Hive's fault. How dare he. The conflicts in the bridge and the magical place are still Centipede, so no need to go over in them, but in Seeds, it's still all Hive's fault, because Seth and Donnie were being manipulated by Ian Quinn, who was working for Centipede, so there. Trax and Tahiti were all part of the Centipede plotline, so no need to go over them, but here in Yes Men is where it really gets juicy. So the villain of that episode is Lorelei, an Asgardian who escaped during the attack by the Dark Elves. That might lead you to say, then it's the fault of Malekith, not Hive. And you'd be right, but Sif says that the way that Lorelei escaped was by one of Loki's secret pathways between worlds. And how would she know about those unless she learned about them from Loki, who she was probably chatting it up with while she was in prison, and Loki was in prison because he invaded Earth, which, as we established before, happened because of Hive. I can do this all day. All the remaining episodes in Season 1 deal with Hydra directly, so there's no need for me to go over them. The same goes for the entirety of Seasons 2 and 3, because Hydra and Hive himself are very obviously the villain of those seasons. What? How is it Hive's fault that May was forced to kill a little girl? I don't know, she was inhuman. Somehow related. Even the Inhuman outbreak and all of its issues are caused by Hive, because the only reason it happened was because Daisy pushed the Terrigen into the ocean, which she only did to stop Jiaying's plan, which Jiaying only had developed because she had been butchered by Hydra, so once again, Hive. and all the subsequent issues that they have with the Watchdogs and the Superior are a result of that, so it's Hive's fault. And obviously the only reason Radcliffe did all of his stuff with LMDs in the framework were because of his experience with Hive, so I don't even have to explain that one. Now admittedly I can't really find a way to tie the whole Ghost Rider business back to Hive since that was all tied to the Darkhold, but you know what, the Darkhold was found by two scientists who wanted to science, and we already established that scientific advancement is because of Hive, so sure, it's all Hive's fault. Now season 5 is where it gets fun. The entire season revolves around the agents trying to stop the world from being destroyed, and we find out that the reason it was is because Talbot, in his attempt to protect the planet from Thanos, broke it apart searching for Gravitonium. Now the only reason Talbot went to such extremes was because he had lost his mind, and he lost his mind through a combination of his brain damage and his torture by Hydra. Obviously the torture is on Hive because of Hydra, and the brain damage is on him too because Talbot was shot in the head by an LMD made by the Superior, whose whole issue was the Inhuman outbreak, and as we said before, that was Hive's fault too. Even the whole problem of Phil dying, again, is Hive's fault because he died because of his deal with Ghost Rider, which he made to stop Ada, who was created by Radcliffe because of his encounter with Hive. So it's Hive's fault that Coulson died the second time, as is the fact that Yo got her arms chopped off. Ruby did it, and she was raised by Hydra, so obs. But she also did it out of her obsession with Daisy, which only started after she became Quake, and Daisy only became Quake because out of her grief over Lincoln, who died because of Hive. Going to season 6, the problem was aliens, which you could say is definitely not Hive's fault, but the only reason that not Coulson here is running around is because of explosion of the 3 monoliths, and those monoliths blew up because of Hale's bomb, and she was Hydra. So once again, it all goes back to Hive. And finally, in season 7, obviously Hydra makes a return as a main villain, but we also have the Chronicoms, and the Chronicoms only know how to time travel because of Fitzsimmons, and Fitzsimmons only know how to time travel because they were forced to back in season 5, and we already explained how that was Hive's fault. So voila, ladies and gentlemen, that is how every single awful thing that has happened to our beloved agents over the course of 7 years is because a crazy purple space squid got a god complex and tried to take over the world. So, to conclude, don't do drugs, kids. Okay, I'm not sure what this video was, but my sister and I love to joke about how every single bad thing that has ever happened, ever, is Hive's fault, and so I decided it would be a great idea to spend almost 10 minutes talking about it on YouTube. If you've never seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., first of all you should, because it's a great show, but also I'm sorry, because I just spoiled a bunch of it, and you're probably very confused. I just want to have a little fun with this one and celebrate the show that I love, so I hope you enjoyed watching me be a weirdo. Maybe the next video will be more serious, but who can tell. Congratulations if you made it this far, and I'll see you next time. You're also probably thinking that I spend an inordinate amount of time being presumptuous about your inner... I have done the math, and I can prove that every single thing... I have done the math, and I can prove that every single bad... I have done the math. And another thing that I like is the... But then you distracted me. Say hi.